Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rosemary Hodgson. I'm from the HR Strategy Lead at Cheshire West and Chester Council. I'm here with my colleague Chris Chinnery.
Yep, and I work for a company called Co-Associates Limited, who provide back office HR, transactional, payroll and ICT and support Cheshire West and Chester.
So what I'm going to do today is really talk you through our implementation of Taleo Recruit. It's still only quite early days for us. There's still lots of development that we need to do, but this is really about our journey. We went live with this back in January, so as you'll appreciate, it's still very early days, but I'm hoping that really we can share our experiences with you today so you can learn a little bit more about our journey, about what we've done, and also give you an opportunity to see what it's like. So, Cheshire West and Chester Council, for those of you who don't know, we're a new authority, relatively speaking, so we actually came about following LGR in 2009. And we were brought together from 4 different local authorities. So we had Cheshire County Council, which was obviously a former county council, and then we had 3 other district councils too. So we had Vale Royal Borough Council, we had Ellesmere Port and Neston Borough Council and Chester City Council. So a real mix of different authorities. So if you can imagine, in 2009 we were actually bringing together 4 different organisations, 4 different systems, 4 different processes, 4 different people, lots of people, and also 4 different cultures, who are all very, very different, despite being in a very close geographical vicinity, all very, very different in their approach. As a local authority, we've actually had very, very ambitious plans. So our Chief Executive was always very keen that we were to become the best local authority. Our Chief Executive, Steve Robinson, actually plays quite a role at a national level to try and influence the national political framework. He's currently, at the moment, actually helping and assisting Birmingham following their series of issues that they've had just recently. So he's been in place actually since before LGR, so we've had fairly consistent leadership from then. And we've basically underpinned by 3 core values, and that's customer first, best practice and value for money, and that underpins everything that we do.
Of Taleo. If you just bear with me one second. As you can tell, I'm not the best public speaker. I prefer dark corners and lots of monitors. So the implementation of Taleo. We met with our colleagues from Evosys, Sanjay and a gentleman called Meet. Came over and we started our Taleo journey, a 12-week journey, including 2 weeks Christmas break as well. So we had 10 weeks to implement this system. Now, no matter how many times Sanjay and Meet sat back very confidently and said, "Don't worry about it," we didn't believe them.
I have to say, we weren't entirely confident. We were a bit like, really? Really? You really think that's possible? As Chris will go on, it was.
Absolutely. And this is, testament to Evosys and their wealth of knowledge, their experience, the way that they could come in and help us analyse what we were doing. And they knew, they almost anticipated half of the questions and challenges that we were going to place in front of them up front. So our journey started with basically info gathering, looking at our current processes, mapping them out, discussing them with Meet and Sanjay, and letting them almost challenge us in saying, "Are you sure you want to do it that way? I understand you've been doing it that way for 5 years, but is that actually the best way forward? Can we not reinvent this route?" So we sat down, we gathered all this information, we then designed our new processes. We then took on a document design phase, so that was lifting all of our current documentation and translating it into electronic format. So things like our control forms for requesting a job. We replicated that within Taleo, but we also simplified it. We found that out of the 50-something questions that we were asking hiring managers to complete originally, we can now limit that to maybe 27. So we translated all the forms. We then passed it over to Meet, who did a lot of the configuration for us. We then went in through a system walkthrough, which is basically we sat down with our junior build of the system, and it's sort of first stage UAT basically. And we sat down and went through the journey that our hiring managers would go through and also our applicants would go through. We then sat back down again and thought, we can redesign this a bit better. So we stripped out a lot more again, and then, well, that was it really. We rolled it into production. And then we did some UAT testing with our service managers in our more complex recruitment areas. specifically in high volume and difficult to recruit areas, social workers. I know we're going to probably talk a lot about social workers, but it's one of our biggest headaches within our organisation, and catering as well. So we engaged with those departments, we sat down with them, listened to what their problems were, and almost allowed them to help us design that part of the system for them, so it would actually increase their applicant generation. We then rolled it out. We had some system admin training, again provided with EvoSys, and normally when I've gone through system admin training previously, it's been intensive week, 2-week courses of constantly sitting down and working 9-hour days to learn a system. I think we managed to get through the system admin training in 2.5 days, and then they left us. But they left us strong, they left us empowered. We were able to actually take on the role that we'd obviously been relying heavily on Sanjay and Meet to do previously, and actually walk with that, and also help us start generating ideas on what we can do to develop things going forward.
I think it's probably fair to say as well, in terms of that implementation, we thought actually if we tested it out in our really, really challenging areas, we thought that was really going to be the best test. Because actually if we can crack some of these really challenging areas that are really difficult to recruit to, or where the process is particularly challenging, or we may have issues around IT use, then actually we thought if we can crack those, then actually we've probably got a fair chance with every other part of the organisation too. So that was really our real test of this. And then when we were actually training managers, rather than actually going out with a kind of big bang approach with our training, we've actually done it on very much on those people who are recruiting on a case-by-case basis. So actually really starting to handhold managers through that process so they can start to understand what they need to do, but doing it at a time when it's timely for them. So actually starting to try and look at those people who are looking for approval for their vacancies, starting to roll out the training at that point, rather than at a point at which they're actually saying, I need to recruit tomorrow. So we start to try and do that a little bit more proactive.
Yeah, implementation and our experience with, well, EvoSys Direct really. If I start with, the vast amount of knowledge that came with Meet and Sanjay and the entire company, if I'm honest with you. Sanjay, I believe, 14 plus years in the game. You can see why you look tired. But they actually came in and they had every question, every concern that we had, there was an answer, there was a positive direction that we could go in, or there was a way that we could develop a solution with the support of EvoSys. Their business process analysis as well, even though we were quite firm in our process this is what we want, on discussing and being challenged, it actually gave us the opportunity to review, actually, are we doing this properly? Have we missed an opportunity here in reducing touch points, approvals and things like that, and unnecessary administration processes?
I think it's really important that we actually, as we were going through this process, there was lots of whys being asked. So it was a case of, well, why do we do it like that? And actually sometimes it was a case of unpicking what we'd previously got set up to say, well, we've always done it like that. And actually sometimes you need to have the opportunity to challenge what you do and question what you do. And that, for us, is really part of an ongoing journey about where we are with Taleo. So even now, as I said earlier on, we're still looking at the requisition form and going, I'm not sure we really need to include all of those questions. And so really it's a constantly why, asking why all the time.
And yeah, the timescales of the implementation of, as we discussed before, they walked through the door, they said we can do this in 12 weeks. We said, well, hang on, we shut down for Christmas for 2 weeks, that only leaves us 10. We can still do it. And all the way up until the point of go live, it was, are we going to be able to do it? And then everything just fell into place nicely within that last week. And now I sit back and I go, yeah, I should have trusted you.
It's probably fair to say actually that implementing actually over that time period worked really well, because inevitably Christmas time is actually always quite a low period of activity around recruitment, because people aren't necessarily looking for jobs. Hiring managers aren't particularly putting jobs out there because people aren't necessarily applying for them. So actually to go live in January actually worked really well for us. The timing of it really was perfect in terms of that recruitment activity that we had or didn't have actually ongoing at that time.
Absolutely. And the support that EvoSys gave us as well, when they came in through the door, they instantly set out clear timescales and milestones for the project. And every day we would sit down, we'd discuss what we'd done the previous day, what we were achieving that day, and what we were going to do the following day. And regularly we would get emails late at night from Meet and Sanjay confirming everything that we'd gone through and preparing us for the next day. Whenever we had any questions at any time of the day, we could just get in contact with them and then we would have an answer straight away. Very supportive. and also the commitment, really. You know, meet Sanjay, they were there early in the morning, they worked late at night, and still the ongoing support that we get as well. I mean, personally speaking, I built up a very close relationship with Meet because I work very closely with him through this project. And we still engage now, we still bounce ideas off each other, and Sanjay drops us a line every now and again just to make sure everything's running well. You know, it was quite a pleasure to work with. And delivery style, something that we've not really experienced before. We were told from day one that this is part of your training, even though we were just sitting down to be shown the product. Your training starts the first day these guys would walk through the door. And so bear that in mind if they do come on board with you. Take it on board, listen to what they're saying, and just believe that